Good evening, everyone. Going to call the meeting to order. Thank everyone for joining us in the audience here this evening, and thank my fellow board members here as well. We will begin, in addition to the call to order now at 5:30, begin with the roll call by Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. Ms. Kane? Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Commissioner May? Dr. Northup?
Here.
Ms. White? Here. Mr. Williams?
Here.
Judge Williams?
Here.
Ms. Woods? Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Williams, would you please lead us in the pledge this evening? Thank you. The next item of business is approval of the agenda, but for anyone who may have seen that, as well as for the board here, the staff has requested some amendments to the agenda. Regrettably, for our sake, in light of the fact that in the past they've always been extremely enlightening to me, we will not be having a special presentation by Youth Left Behind. And so we're going to remove item 8 down there. And also there was under operations, item 9, business, subparagraph D, staff benefit package, that will not be discussed this evening as well. So with those two items being removed from the agenda, ask for an approval of the amended agenda.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is review and approval of the minutes. The staff recommending that those be approved as submitted, and would ask for any comments, additions, deletions, modifications, or changes to those minutes. And if none, then we will accept them as submitted. Any changes or other things? Hearing none, then we will submit them or as submitted, or approve them as submitted. Next is the treasurer's report. Ms. Woods is not yet in attendance, and so in light of her absence, we do have the financial report as part of our paperwork. And also, Tammy, would you please present that information?
Yes, thank you. So in your financial report, you're going to see the financial highlights. We cover areas of the balance sheet, revenue expense statements, and general ledgers, and of our contract schedule. So just in general, there were no unusual transactions during the month. On our liabilities on the balance sheet, we're still showing the TIF, and the other one was the accounts payable, $317,000. We have in our contract schedule, we have roughly $11 million left on awarded contracts for their 1 year, and $24,249,083 left in their total contracts for the 2 to 3 years, however left as long as left on their contracts. So when you are looking back in your package, if you go all the way back towards the end of the package, you're going to see where it shows our cash balance and how that is broken down into being awarded. So operating account balance, we had $25 million in it, $25,580,000, and then underneath it's listed the current contracts and liabilities. So if you go down that list, you'll see what we have for the signed contracts and liabilities. Out of our $25 million in the bank, we've got $1.4 million that is not obligated at this time. So does anybody have any questions I could answer?
I'm sorry. Questions from anyone? One thing I am impressed with is the finding under our statement of revenue and expenditures that the administrative expenses, less the tax collectors' fees, have remained and have presented at less than 9% of the total, with 88% of our revenues and the people's taxes going towards program support and expenses, which I think is in the direction which this money was intended to be spent. And seeing that that large amount certainly would be, as I've looked at other the nonprofit sites and the reviewers and whatever, that seeing that type of percentages there would be very commendable. So I applaud the staff for that, and hope that the taxpayers are pleased and satisfied with the way the program is being run and the way the dollars are being expended. So thank you all for that. Okay. The next is public comments, and again, if there are any, that the forms requesting that are over here by the infamous bottle of hand sanitizer, so you can both submit your request to speak and sanitize your hands at the same time. Do we have any requests? We have none at this time. Again, the next item would have been our special presentation, which has again been canceled this evening. Operations policy amendments for board approval. And welcome, Ms. Wood. The Personnel Committee and Policy Bylaws Committees have met and bring the following amendments to the Trust Policy Manual for approval. The emergency response, Ms. Cannon.
Yes, thank you. So we had the opportunity to review some of our policies related to personnel. And so we have several on here to discuss. The first one being a disaster plan. We learned during the snowstorm that we had no real disaster plan, and how we would work, whether that's remotely in office, what we would look for administrative leave, and of course how we would handle outages for our employees that may have experienced, home loss or any of those type of things. So we have vetted the policy through our personnel and our policy and bylaws committee, and would ask that that be approved by the board.
Okay. Any questions, discussion for Ms. Cannon? And if not, motion to approve
So moved.
and second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? And hearing none, vote all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that passes. Annual sick leave, or annual leave and sick leave, Ms. Cannon.
We have worked with our Personnel Committee and our Policy and Bylaws Committee to update our annual leave and sick policy for our employees to mirror that of the county. Our policy before had PTO kind of lumped in. There was no way to really separate out the earnings of those. And so we have gone back with both the committee's approval and have an updated policy related to our leave that we would ask you to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, excuse me, let me get this in order. So we need a motion to approve the annual leave and sick leave.
Motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, now, any discussion? Questions, comments? Okay, if not, and hearing none, motion to approve has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is approved as well. And then next item, new hire paperwork by Tammy. Ms. Abrams.
Thank you. We have, same thing, we vetted this through our personnel and through our policy and bylaws. We have Our background checks are done through a system called VEX, which is Volunteer and Employee Criminal History System. When we had an audit done this year, we found that there's a form that we're supposed to do on new hires that we have not been doing. So we're adding that to our procedures, and I've added it into our new employee files that we do. So that's the applicant waiver agreement and statement. So that is the change that's been added onto here. So I appreciate having this approved.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the new hire paperwork?
Motion.
And second?
A second.
Okay. There has been a motion and seconded. Any further discussion regarding the new hire paperwork? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, that has been approved. And then the last item under the operations and business was the staff benefit package, and that item has been removed from the agenda. Okay, the next item down is discussion regarding the summer workshop. Ms. Cannon.
Yes, we were going to work with you all for June or July, and I think we probably need to look at June, I would say. I know it's a busy time of year, but we do need to sit down and actually have a collective board. We're going to need to publicly notice it, but meeting regarding our budget for the next 5 years. As we look at what our current programming is, some of those are expiring next year, which is with our mental health, also with our out-of-school time, and then some of our sole source. We really do need to have a plan on how we fund going forward and how much money we put towards these different buckets if we want to continue those kind of buckets, or if we want to look at different approaches. But we want you all to have a realistic picture of what Tammy and I've worked on to see what it looks like year over year. So like this year, it looks like we have a good surplus, if you will, but then that surplus is going to carry deficits for the next 3 years if all things stay the same. If we get voted back in, then we'll be in a different ballgame where we can really put some emphasis on this closer to that time. But for right now, we do want to do that. So not so much the data dive. I think we're good on the data. We updated the core indicators last year. Nothing's really changed on Florida charts at this point. Our next information we'll get certainly will be our school district, school grades, and we'll be able to look at some of that and see some movement around those. But I think it would be more imperative for us to actually have a real budget conversation and make some decisions as a team, how much money we want to put towards what, and how we want to move forward for the next few years. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions about that. Otherwise, I'll have direct Alma to start working with you guys on a day. But I would say let's at least plan a half day. I mean, I know that's a lot to ask, but I'd rather walk out of there with a plan that we can put action to. So
Okay.
that way.
Any questions from the board or further discussion regarding that item?
Alma said she wants to know if there's a preference around mornings, or would you guys rather afternoons or evenings? I'll do whatever.
Mornings for me.
Okay,
But
mornings better.
Lindsay, let me ask you a question. As we look at how we continue to fund, have we been empowering and helping people understand that the original intent, and I've been on the board, that we're not going to fund organization in perpetuity, and how they're preparing to fund when these funds go away? Because when the funds go away, I mean, we would expect that these programs to continue. And so, I mean, there was no commitment beyond the 3 years. Quite frankly, it was from this board, it was like, we're going to give you the jump start, and how are you going to build capacity within these 3 years that we're funding you this money? So are we beginning to limit expectations, or are people continue to think that this is going to be a windfall of money for them in perpetuity?
Well, as part of our planning, and I believe, and most of our projects that we have out there, we've required them to have some sort of sustainability plan moving forward. And so some of that may be a reduction in how many kids they can serve, just based on what other funds are out there. But we have been preparing them for that. That's why we have also the foundation directory and other things available to them to help them start to search other organizations or funding sources, because one thing we do know is blended funding sources are really what you need to be doing as you progress as a nonprofit, because as things are happening with the feds, if those monies drop out, what do you have over here? So really, that's also a process of nonprofit, though, that some of ours are not there yet, where maybe their only funding source with a little bit of private dollars, and so working them through that.
But a part of the
yes.
criteria is funding, I mean, you are making sure that they implement in their strategic plan some type of sustainability
Yes.
with, you know,
It's part of their contracts that they have to have. I believe it's contract, but
what's the weight of sustainability in their contracts?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
What's the weight of sustainability in the contract? So, I mean, how do we score it?
Well, you mean the scoring part
Yeah,
of that?
if you,
I don't know if that was in the original one. So like out of school time would be the first one that's coming up at the end of the 3 years. I know it was in there. I don't know what the weight looked like around it. I know what it looks like for the CARES grant, and of course the ones that we've done with Healthy Schools Escambia, but that is definitely a
I mean, obviously you wasn't here, but I mean, as we have the discussion,
Sure.
I mean, I think it's important to talk about how did we weigh sustainability and how are people going to sustain? I mean, because if we're giving programs and, you know, they no longer get funded, there's no continuation. And I think that we were very clear, you know, and probably may have missed the scoring on sustainability, but it was pretty clear from the board at that time that, you know, we want to get you started, empower you to be able to go out and raise other funds, but how are you going to sustain once we no longer give you funds? So hopefully that can be a part of the conversation.
Well, it's
when you bring
ongoing
forward.
conversations, especially in our trainings with our providers and our meetings that we have with them. We always talk about those opportunities, and anything that comes across our desk as well, we're sending their way as opportunities for them to engage other foundations or funding opportunities that come. So yeah, it is part of our ongoing conversation. It's not just a one and done conversation.
Thank you.
Sure.
I would agree with you, Lumen, that there is opportunity for the board to reiterate that and to remind our providers of that this is not a here into the, you know, kind of indefinite future and whatever, that this is a finite funding source, and that itself is somewhat contingent on these various organizations seeking funding elsewhere in order to sustain these programs, which we hope and would love to see all of them go kind of ad infinitum into the future and things. So it's a good point. I think something worth going over with our providers and things, and for us to have learned that as well as we look at providers and applicants in the future and all, that really be stressed to them, that this is a starting point, not an end point.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think it's an economic stimulus that I mean, you didn't have startup capital, you're an organization that didn't have the resources, but we gave you the tools to go out and be successful. And whether it's United Way or whether it's foundation money, we've given it to you. But if they don't have a long-term strategic plan of how they're going to fund it, I think that we're not good stewards, and I think we failed in providing for our children, because to give them short-term plans, and we know how this funding works. Simply, organizations will come back to us after their 3-year extension and say, I need more, because if y'all don't give me more, I can't help children. And so, but if we make them put the plan into action as a part of a contract, then we can hold them accountable, rather than them coming back and saying, oh, we're just going to, you know, cut the umbilical cord because we don't have any other money. I mean, so we have to be very clear with that direction.
I agree.
Can I speak on that? I will say at the last program meeting when we were approving those grants, the last after-school program grant, that was one of the questions I asked. And some of the providers did have, they were going out to other funding. And if they needed something, they went to another source to pull that. So there are some of the programs that are, if they have a need, they aren't even coming back to us. They're going to other sources to find to get that need that needs to be met. So I was appreciative to hear that from. There were a few of them that had that, and we're doing that as well, so.
No, no, and Tori,
Oh, no, I'm saying, I agree
absolutely.
with you, because, you know, I want to know, I want to know, if your program is doing that great, then that means other people should want to pour into it as well. So I'm right there with you with that, but I just wanted to tell you, I know that there are a few that, there are examples that they are doing that, but I'm right there with you with, come with some money to the table.
And no, Tori, and I concur with everything you've said. If your program is doing good work, I mean, it will not be solely dependent on government dollars. And I mean, you know, give a guy a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him to fish, you feed him forever. And so a part of what we're doing is empowering people. And so I certainly, I'm glad to hear that you are part of when people were referring to that. So, I mean, but I just don't want to give people expectations that this board is going to provide them money for the rest of, the life of their program.
Okay, good segue to begin the budget workshop and other things that you have proposed. I think that would be great, Ms. Cannon. Okay, ethics and financial disclosures, Ms. Abrams.
Okay, thank you. As a reminder, the ethics training is an annual requirement for the board members and our staff. I do have a couple of board members that I'm still waiting to get certificates from, and I have emailed you, so if you could get me those as soon as possible, I would appreciate it. The financial disclosures we have to do annually are due on July 1st, and they have not came out yet by email, so you guys will get them an email notice. It won't be probably until June. Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the board or comments or any further discussion on that topic? Okay. And if we have questions about that, can get in touch with you, Ms. Abrams, and/or with Ms. Ella. Okay, thank you. Okay, now, programs, Child Care Summit, May 28th. Ms. Cannon.
Yes, so I know there's been a lot in the press about this, but you guys all know that we've been working with Mayor D.C. Reeves on looking at potential childcare opportunities that we could partner with the city on. We have been able to provide them some names and work with Teresa Sherp, who's their new, I can't think of her title. It's something like education coordinator, but she's been somebody I've worked with for a long time, so we know each other pretty well. And we were able to talk about looking at some innovative ideas around childcare. And we are going to be having I think it's a growing meeting. I think it started with a small group and it's gotten bigger, but it will be May 28th. It is going to be an all-day, 8 to 4 kind of workshop, if you will. And the desire is to come out with an actionable plan to address some of the child care crisis that we have locally. We also, just so you all know, I don't know if any of you are coming or invited, but my counterpart, Jim Hodge, who is the CSC director in Miami, he's been so great to me through this whole process and helping me to get onboarded to a lot of things. But they do a really unique project called Thrive by 5 that's spread to other areas. And he's going to be coming, and I believe with his ELC director as well, to talk about how they tackled their child care crisis in Miami and how that has subsequently turned into a very high graduation rate as they've tracked it over years. So we're excited to have somebody come in that's done it, so we don't have to just recreate or have meeting after meeting. It's something that's been going on for quite a while down there. So we'll keep you guys posted on what comes from that particular meet. I'm sure maybe the press will keep you posted too. I think there's a lot of people that are very interested in this, but what our role will be in that going forward.
Questions, comments from the board? I have a question. I'm going to be the unknown here. Can Alma text and/or email us as far as the meeting time and location and things, the one on the 28th, with details of that? Thank you. Okay. Next item is the Mental Health Task Force.
This is something that is Michelle Salzman's task force. Just wanted to remind you all, they're having their quarterly meeting. That will be on the 30th, and I will be in attendance there. So if there are anything that you would like me to bring to the table or any information to get back, just let me know. So it's usually a really great collaborative couple of hours with our local community to learn what they're doing specifically around mental health and tackling that from children all the way to adults. So.
I have heard from one of my colleagues who serves as a case manager with Centene that they have gone from 3 providers in mental health and dental, I guess, down. Anyway, there's certainly a big need continues to exist there. So I think very much a topic for more resources and more people and organizations engaged in that need.
Well, and we are a huge part of that. So the work that we do with our mental health contract and how that work is informal but specifically needed for early identification is a big part of it. I've been able to present at that group on our mental health contracts and give some of their results. So, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month as well. So,
Great.
you know, this is really timely for us to be talking about how our community is tackling this together.
Right. Okay. CARES grant updates, and I see Ms. Ray headed for the podium there, so please.
I'm sorry, I'm a shorty and I could not see all of you from my seat, so it's good to see your faces as I just give you all an update about all that's happening with CARES. We had a great meeting today, Parade of Providers, all of the CARES providers, let's see, Children's Home Society, Ready Kids, Hope Above Fear, Healthy Start Coalition, Gulf Coast Kids House, Rosa Verde, Be Ready Alliance Coordinating for Emergencies, Golden Elite Track and Field, Youth Left Behind, Dixon School of Arts and Sciences, General Chappie James, Flight Academy Incorporated, James B. Washington, Education and Sports, Girls Incorporated, and CMB Visions. So we met with them today, but also as a team, and this is kind of a new process that we wanted to start doing with all of our grants and moving forward. We had individual meetings with all 14 of those providers. I think it was important for us to meet from the very beginning so everyone had an idea. We started on the same page to get an understanding of their proposals, their metrics, looking at their goals, their objectives. We talked about quarterly reporting. We talked about how they would look for that data. We thought it was very important to start having more of that quantitative measure. We are full of the qualitative and the feel goods, but this was our opportunity to get those metrics aligned with what the public is asking. So of our 24 ECT indicators, I will say firmly that we have 23 of those 24 indicators represented in those 14 contracts. So the only one that we're in need of is foster care placement. So we'll just keep that in mind and moving forward. That's very important work, just wasn't hit upon with this, this newest grant. So the micro grants, as you remember, came from just an idea, a conversation with community members who really wanted to work on strategies. We had a lot of community people and stakeholders who had concerns, growing concerns, or daily concerns, it seems, that we still see a lot of that community violence. So from those conversations and the strategies came the CARES grant. So we are very excited about the development. We started out with only $300,000 in ask, over 44 applicants, moving forward about $1.4 million, which we did not have. 1.9, I'm sorry, I don't want to short the 5, don't short it. But that is a lot. But we did see from those applications that there are a lot of caring members throughout our community that are willing to do this meaningful work. Unfortunately, we couldn't write a check for everybody, but you know, during those conversations and looking at our available funds, the program committee did, and the board did approve going to $611,504,000. So that is a lot of money that's going in. We feel confident that that will be a continuous grant, continue to have more applicants in coming forward, but we do know that there are some shortfalls with some of our grassroots, not for the lack of love and intent, but just not having the knowledge, right? So looking at some opportunities to continue to grow. What we told our parade of providers today, we're not that organization that's here your money, best of luck to you. You know, we continue to grow with those providers, provide them with the tools and resources so that they can grow as a provider, and so we can continue to grow as a foundation. So we had a room full today. We had almost 60 providers, so that were just present today. So we have a new location. Parade providers are no longer in our building. We're having to use the room in the library of PSC. So it's a good problem, but it is a problem. We're getting bigger. But that means that more of our children and families are getting the help that they need. So just wanted to give you an update of where we are, what we're doing, and moving forward. We know that we're going to have the metrics to prove that our programs are truly making a difference. I think we've always known, but data speaks volumes of what we're doing. We'll be able to say how chronic absences is being decreased. We're looking at the graduation rate. We're looking at, childcare needs, prenatal care, all of the things that will have those sound metrics that will be closely aligned with each of our providers and our programs. Do y'all have any questions?
Deborah, so are we going to be able to maybe present a little bit a pre and post where we were and where we are after we expended these dollars, and kind of what's the ROI for the citizens that have paid this? Because Lindsay mentioned Representative Southern Michelle's. I've been to most of them. I was at the beginning of them. And
Right.
we were in a bad state. And so what's the improvement of what we're doing? I know it's critical in the school district, but I'm wondering, can we get, like, not at the end, but sort of halfway now, a pre of where we were, where we are we meeting the metrics, and what's our measurement, what we're accomplishing with the dollars? How difficult would that be?
I don't think it will be very difficult. I know with confidence with our new programs, but I think we were able to find enough of the measures that were existing with those initial proposals with OST and mental health. We just didn't start the same way, right?
Right.
So now I think that we're going to have very firm data that shows that quantitative data. You'll be able to see the alignment. We were going through each of them per student. Like if you have 100 applicants, each of your applicants will have that pre and a post if that's what you wanted. With the survey, it will have what your data was, your baseline for your school performance, what it is midterm, and what it's going to be at the end of their contract. So I feel confident in moving forward that we're going to have the data and the metrics that's going to prove the worth of ECT and the dollars that have been spent. You don't know what you don't know, now we do. And moving forward, I think this is going to be the vision for all of our applicants. We told them today, like the next OST, it's going to be very, very competitive. And if you don't have the data to show what your organization has done, that's not going to be something that we would support. So we want to make sure that we can equip our current providers with the same armor, and moving forward, we have the data that supports the spending.
So when's midterm? When's that grant was awarded? How long ago?
The OST,
mental
so we
health-
will have end of year reports in July, and then their contract would be up in February, January timeframe, and that's when we will have a new RFP. But remember, we did that extension with OST, so they'll have up until like March, they'll have until May, and then July if they have summer programming.
So, probably at this point, obviously, we're halfway through, so we could get an update instead of waiting to the end.
Absolutely, we'll have one in July. So we'll have another end of the year report, full report from everyone for the OST and mental health by that time.
But
we're allowing
that would
the
be a
end of the year
12-month cycle,
metrics.
right? Or, that would be...
They're kind of all on different cycles, but, sorry.
And
They are
to
all
my
on different
point-
cycles,
so-
but we
and
do
to my
need-
point, Deborah, and
Right.
to my point, and
Yes.
I'm not speaking for those people on the board, but I would hate to vote against someone after a 12-month cycle if I'm not at least told them that you're not meeting the outcomes quarterly, mid-year, and at the end.
Right.
And then present to me your organization on mental health, what's the net benefit to the citizens that you're paying. And so even if you have not made progress, I would like to tell you the reason why I'm not going to vote against you for your renewal, because you just didn't meet those metrics. So
Right.
I would love to get that report maybe even in a public meeting, so it can have that discussion of why, I'm not going to vote to fund you anymore.
Right, and we did do that. Remember, we had like a mid-review, we had the ones that we delayed the voting on because we needed to have those conversations as to how they were going to work to improve, what their attendance rate was, and their expenditures up until that point. So I think we have done that. What we've tried to do as just a team is have monthly conversations when they're looking at the reimbursement, so they're not caught off guard as to what the questions are. We never want to wait until reimbursement for that to happen, because I always think there's a link between our questions and them getting their money, right? So as soon as we see something that's a little bit off, we have those conversations with them via phone or email so that they'll know what the questions are, what the gray areas may be in the information or the data that we're receiving. Having going through a 3 to 4 person process, I feel like, we've gone through the channels to see where they are in their data and their submission. So no one would be caught off guard if they were not to be refunded, because I do think that we've had those ongoing conversations about attendance and reimbursement actions.
No, and Deborah, it's not you. And so what I would say, because I was ahead of this 3 years before it started, and I hate that I'm monopolizing of the time. The reason the intermediate, and the post is very important because the funding was never intended to supplement things that were already existing. And so as we look at the pre and where we were or where we're going, what new services did you enhance? And I think that that's fair to have that conversation. You're absolutely right. I remember when you presented, but just a refresher to see
Yes.
where we are.
Absolutely.
Because we can't not in good stewardship support things that were already existing before this tax, because this was an enhancement tax to fill gaps that was not already provided. And so I would just like to get that data and get that presentation to see what we're doing that we didn't do previously. And it may
Right.
be great things. I don't know.
Right.
I remember the presentation, but I'd love to get that and get a refresher so we can feel good. And I can't speak for them. So we can feel good. But this is why we did this. We have an enhanced mental health, CARES. We've enhanced the programs that were already existing, but we have not supplemented programs that were already there where you had provider resources and providers paying and Humana and Medicare, whatever. This is something new that's benefiting the community. And so that would, to me, help me better understand if the providers are giving a net benefit to the citizens.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we kind of morph the parade of providers into, right? If we provide you with resources, we're providing you with service and access to different training and professional development. Like, we've given you everything. These are your tools. And if after all of that you haven't grown as an organization, and even bringing on a person to teach them nonprofit 101, that will be free to them, but thousands of dollars to us. So if you don't take advantage of everything that we have provided and you don't, have the metrics to support it, I think we would feel okay about, if it didn't happen for them, because I think that we've given all of ourselves and some to those organizations to help them to continue to thrive.
Right, yeah, if we look at Lakeview, whatever, and further conversation, we'll have it offline.
Yeah.
But if there's no new, if the percentage of net new doesn't match the funds that were provided, then we clearly failed.
Right,
If the net
absolutely.
new doesn't provide the new funding, then what have we done in terms of services that we provided?
Right. And we're super competitive. We want to see the action behind the dollars and the data to support it.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I had a question as well. When we're talking about what, of course, we'll have a plan on what we want to do further, but whenever we are looking at the current programs, whenever it's time to renew, if we decide to renew whatever, I would also like to make sure that we look at what they originally wrote and make sure that we're comparing that, because there have been, changes, and I understand the changes, and I don't have a problem with the changes, but what they originally wrote, I would like to make sure that we also look at that and compare what they originally wrote and where they are now, not the changes in between, because I think that's also important. Even though there were obstacles, I think, to be fair to the people that didn't have the opportunity to change those, we need to make sure that we address what the original contract said based on what they hit as well, just because I think some people didn't have the option to change that. And so, to be fair to those people that didn't have the opportunity or didn't choose to have the opportunity, I want to make sure we're comparing what they asked us for originally, especially when it comes to the financial part.
No, absolutely. So I think in that annual report, we'll just make sure their Exhibit B within their original proposal and those outcomes match, and that will be the reporting scope of work that we'll outline for you all for July's reporting.
comments or questions for Ms. Ray? Thank you very much. Also
Thank
want
you.
to recognize you were referred to and was discussed numerous times of the data and that type of information, and thank Rick for his support in that and the SAMUS and other things and the data that we're all depending on also. Thank you for that contribution. Two things. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, our next discussion is in regards to the Early Learning Coalition. And Lindsay, I think Bruce is here patiently waiting as well, so please.
What we have on the agenda, we had this last year, for those of you that remember. It's a little off cycle from ELC's contract. We will be going into their third year. We're currently in their second. For them to procure that contract, it's a dollar for dollar type of match. And so our portion of this is a match. It's around it's $238,875, and that's able to work with the school readiness dollars. It's called School Readiness Match, and it allows that full day for that working family for childcare. And so we do have to produce a match letter ahead of time so that the ELC can have that commitment and move forward with pulling those dollars and entering into that contract. And so it does give a commitment from us, and so it does require a vote. I know that it's not always viewed that way in some other circles, but it is something that says that we're committing to funding them going forward. So we just ask for a vote to recommend that we sign that as we go into our third year. And if there's any questions, I did ask Mr. Watson to please be here, as he is way more versed in some of the requirements around this as well, if you had any questions.
I
This
would add
is-
that commitment letter is not legally binding. It's a promise, not a contract.
And this is year 3. Is this year 2 or year 3?
We're nearing the end of year 2, and then we'll be going into year 3.
So do you have like a plan in place since this is the last year of the contract? Like for like upcoming years after the third year of the contract?
After the third year is over with,
Yes, sir.
hopefully I can convince you to keep us on and keep subsidizing our children because of the benefits, which I'm fully prepared to talk to your program committee about. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty now, I mean, we have numbers. I know what we're doing. We're different than any other thing that you have out there. In other
So
words,
you said, will you be at our next programming committee?
yes, I will.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Bruce, in terms of, as we look at, Title I, Title whatever dollars being cut and what the state's doing, and particularly at Head Start, how does this affect early learning and school readiness? Is it going to be an adverse effect to you in terms of increasing population if something happens to Head Start?
Not at all.
It won't be an effect to you at all?
No, it would actually, most of the families that are in Head Start, lower income, would actually be picked up by our larger school readiness program, but would not impact our match program whatsoever.
All right, so the other thing is, and I have to align because obviously we're going to talk about CRA at the county. The mayor is talking about childcare, taking a lot of funding in implementing a new plan for childcare. How does that affect school readiness?
I'm hoping that when we all get together in 2 weeks and start brainstorming our ideas, we can come up with some means and opportunities by which to leverage our local community to put more children into care, children that may not otherwise qualify for the school readiness program. Because you got to remember, at its heart, school readiness is a jobs program. It is created in order to enable parents to work. This particular slice of our jobs program puts anywhere from $3 to $6 million into our community on an annual basis. It's about a 15-to-1 return on investment. Every dollar you all put in is 15 more dollars into our community that otherwise would not be there.
So, and Bruce, I guess I would assume that you're working with the mayor. I know Lindsay's working with him. So you're working with the mayor on that?
Yes, we are.
So I like what you said about a job creation. And so I said this in a program meeting, and I say this publicly since this is recorded. Here's the systemic problem of daycares. The owners are driving around in Mercedes and Lamborghinis, and the daycare workers are standing in line. who are the ones that are teaching our children who are not being paid with an equitable salary. And so I could always be supportive, but it's unfortunate. But the directors are getting rich, and the very people who are providing the services are standing in line to get assistance. And so I hope that in some way, as we fund this, as you said, equitable distribution, that we are trickling that down to the people who are providing the service. And I know it's a private business and they go, but we're funding it with public dollars.
Actually,
And so-
unfortunately, the ARPA money ran out already, but I'm happy to say the last 2 years, we actually wrote a lot of programs where we put money into the workers' pockets, not into the owners' pockets.
No, and I appreciate it, Bruce. I think me and you are on the same page. I just said, but I'd love to see those numbers. I'll tell you, I deal with a lot of people in my district. I'd love to see the empirical data of what they're paying in the wages that they're giving, the people who are tasked with teaching and caring for our children. When we, obviously, I mean, we can look at the data, and I would love to have that presented, Lindsay, about school readiness. We have the superintendent here. Are we prepared for school where we are? But if we are making great strides, it's not because of an owner who, is getting higher revenue. It's because we have those people on the ground. And when we have a shortage of people who want to work in that profession, I think that any way we can incentivize, and I say that, Bruce, to say that whatever seat I sit in, I would certainly be supportive of the training, the teaching, incentivizing those very people who are there. Unfortunately, we run a housing program, first-time home buyers, and we have people who are in daycares who make $13, $14, $15 an hour, and they can't afford a Habitat house. But we say that we're not ready for school readiness, but we're not preparing them. I mean, their mentality is that they're trying to take care of their family. So I'd love to even support more dollars. I wish you would come for more if we're going to equitably distribute that to the people who are performing the work.
And actually, this was some of the brainstorming that was done somewhat with Lindsay and somewhat with her predecessor, a lot of which kind of got backburnered the last couple of years because of the ARPA money actually was doing a lot of what we were thinking about doing locally. And so we're just now getting around, and part of the conversation with the city will be kind of to kickstart the ideas and see what we could do to incentivize some of these programs to see, prove to the community when you pay a decent wage, you get a decent worker, and you have even greater outcomes than we have now. And I'm
So
hoping we can do that.
what's our comparison to the other 66 counties? I mean, how are we paying in compared to other counties across the state in terms of daycare workers?
Actually, the rates that we pay for the child to be in care are universally set across the state by the state now. We don't have any more local control over the
But that's
rates.
not my question. My question is, how much are we paying the daycare workers compared to other counties?
I think our workers for the Panhandle region are about on par from here all the way up to the other side of Tallahassee, from what I've gathered. Down in South Florida, some of them are paying more, but often it's at the price of what they charge our parents. They have upcharges. They're paying. They're making the parents pay even more than what the state is reimbursing them for, and so the parents who are the most vulnerable, making the least amount of money, are paying for those extra hourly wages. It's not coming out of the bulk that gets paid to the provider up front by the state.
And we could have that debate regardless. I mean, but we want to pay people fair, but we want to hold them to higher standards. And so,
Unfortunately, they're all private companies, and the amount of control and the amount of influence that my agency can have on what they pay their people is very limited. It's by design that way. That's the way the feds and the state set it up.
So, I'll end it, Bruce, and say I hope that you ask for the adequate amount of funding to do it. I mean, because if we're going to look down at my dear friend, the superintendent, and my school board member, and hold them accountable for children failing in my district, the failure doesn't start when they get to school. It starts at school readiness. And so we have to provide enough money to make sure that it happens. And if we're not doing that, then I hope you would ask for more, but I hope you would hold the providers accountable.
Well, I did it last year, and I plan on doing it again this year. We're in the contract renewal season. I get up on my soapbox, and I tell them the reason you have a shortage of workers is because you're not paying the ones you have enough. It's your own fault. Cut back on your profits a little bit, and you'll have a better workforce. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. You go to McDonald's, I'll go to Jackson's. I mean, because you work for me. Yeah. Unacceptable.
You're welcome. Other questions, comments, anything from Mr. Watson? And thank you for coming this evening. Ms. Cannon, is there any further action we need to take on that at this point?
I would just need a motion and a vote to sign the commitment letter for those match dollars.
Motion?
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? Does there need to be any further consideration? You had asked Tori, I appreciate that, of whether he was going to be coming to the next program committee meeting, and whether that discussion would need to take place prior to the letter being signed at this point.
No, because he said it was a promissory note, so I'm okay with that. I just have additional questions
Okay.
that wouldn't affect my vote today.
All right. So we've had a motion made and seconded for approval, and any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then that brings us down to the legal report from Ms. Bush. And please.
Yes, good afternoon. So as I believe you all are aware, we recently appeared before the Escambia County Board of County Commissioners related to our exemption request for the TIF dollars, the CRA, the tax increment finance dollars. They have scheduled, at that hearing, they basically continued their decision, and it's set to be heard this Thursday at 1:30. You know, what we have requested and proposed simultaneously is that they grant the exemption and enter into an interlocal agreement where we would fund the youth employment program. It's a summer youth employment program as of right now. Ms. Cannon may speak to some conversations that she's had with the county regarding potentially, I believe, expanding that to a year-round youth employment program. But I'm happy to take any questions either related to the discussion from, you know, that first meeting or the recent meeting with the county, or, you know, related to our position. But just so you're aware that that conversation is ongoing, and I would anticipate a decision Thursday as to whether or not they grant the exemption and we fund a children's program. If they deny the exemption request, then they would take those dollars and use them in their CRAs.
Ms. Cannon, do you have any further comments?
Sure. So I was able to meet with Clara Long, who is over the Summer Youth Employment Program. I think you guys all know that I've been a fan of that program for a long time. They are set for this summer. So this summer is not going to be bringing on 100 new kids, which was a lot of the conversation that we had at the county commission meeting when they were looking at opportunities to partner with us on that. What Clara is really wanting to do, and I think her team is wanting to do, is expand this over the year and focus on juniors and seniors in high school and offering them part-time employment opportunities, but really working on that graduation point and keeping them through those places and keeping them motivated, so jobs are not going to interfere with getting a good night's rest, so the school board doesn't have to worry about that, or teachers, but gives them some sense of responsibility and the opportunity to learn a different skill. So we've also spoken with them about coordinating with George Stone potentially, if there's those youth that would like to go that route, and if not, maybe college is not for them and they want to enter the workforce, they'll already have a leg up in some of those available positions within the county. And so it would be an expansion of what they're currently doing. So they've already got a model for it. They would just be expanding it a little bit differently throughout the year. And I like it. They actually have some really good metrics. They do pre-service training is what I call it. They do pre and post-test evaluations with those youth. They also talk to their mentors that they have on site and do some interviewing with them to see how they felt the student did. And they do collect data around their attendance at school and their performance. And so I think they've been collecting all this, but they haven't really, I don't know if they've done anything with it to really showcase what the program can do. So they already have all the meat of it. It's really just hoping that the county will come to a resolution to allow us to do that. I think that there were several suggestions related to multi-year funding and opportunities to look, or no opportunity, like it go straight into the CRAs. But I did feel from that, and the reason they tabled it was for us to have a discussion about, and for us to actually talk to staff there and see what their desires were as well. When we put that in there, when Meredith and I put it in there, it was because it was a shortfall, and we thought it was a really great example and a good program. But the county clearly sees the need as well, I think, and would like to expand that as we go forward, so.
Chairman, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. White.
I just want to say thank you, Commissioner May, for helping and, getting a partnership. This is great for our students and for especially our high school students. So thank you so much I know it's been tough to be on both boards and try to be a peacemaker in both, but thank you for doing this. So this is great, so.
I don't know what happens, but I'm trying. I'm trying. I think it's a great program, and so I don't know if Claire's correct in that we don't need it this year. I think we do, but we're trying to get there, and so hopefully, it'll be a happy compromise. I think it's all the same dollars.
Okay, no, my question was that the commission is going to come back with the 4 scenarios, and that's the 4 options. There's like 4 options.
There was a lot of discussion about either doing like a multi-year type of contract going forward, which would look more like our sole source type of opportunity there, but that wouldn't really pertain to the CRA dollars per se in the situation that we're in. There was discussion about utilizing our back taxes or those funds that were not requested. I know you have already voted not to push those forward.
And that was my question, Lindsay. That
Yeah.
If we've already voted, I mean, maybe Meredith could tell us better. Since we've already voted, is that an option that should be taken off the list?
So the discussion before the county, they did ask, one of the commissioners said that he would like to see the two first years, and I don't remember what years they were, go toward the summer youth employment program, with the current year going toward the CRA. Other commissioners said they would like to see, the current year and then the 2 unpaid years all go towards the summer youth employment program. We have had the conversation regarding whether or not the trust was legally bound to pay those years that were not requested. And the trust made a determination based on, the advice of your counsel and the advice of, several other outside entities, such as the, what's the name of the group? FACT Group and FACT Council and other, quite a bit of extensive research went into answering that question, and a decision was made that you would pay the year that was due, that was requested in a timely fashion. And so there's nothing legally that's changed as far as a desire or as far as, instruction to pay those years that were not requested. Now, whether or not, going forward, those funds are, ultimately spent in this program, if an interlocal is entered and the trust makes a decision to expend those funds. But it wasn't, I don't believe, a situation where the county, is or is not going to grant the exemption based on those back years. And they didn't direct one way or the other. One of the commissioners did say, well, I think we should just forgive that and not ask about it. Another commissioner said, no, we want to see it paid. So there was discussion surrounding that, but nothing that would change, I don't believe, the trust position.
School board member. So let me be clear, and she's absolutely right. It was in a public meeting. And so I fought to not get the money put in the CRA. And that's, quite frankly, against, some of my colleagues. Because I want the money, and I appreciate Mrs. White acknowledging that. There is a sentiment on our board, and I concur with it. The city has been funded outside of CRA. The school board has been funded. The county has not. The greatest need, quite frankly, are those young guys between the ages of 15 and 18. We had a shooting in my district in Addis Court. And so as a compromise to the chair who wanted to go into CRA, I propose that we have all 3 years to go into a summer employment program as the city is going back to put it into early learning as we funded these other programs. Because there's nothing more unique than a jobs program, JPTA, that the school district did for years, that Career Escarosa did for years, and we're the only ones that are providing it. And when you had 1,700 children to apply for a job that we represent, and we can only service 175 of them, that was the compromise that I presented. And I will tell you that that's, as Stephanie said, I'm on both boards, so I have to be an advocate in the consensus of where this board wants to be, and I've been very clear for that. But I also have to represent the seat that I sit on as a county, and I'm very careful with that. But it's for children, and I would be disappointed if we would hold back money for a program that's probably the most unique program in the state of Florida. What we're doing with summer employment is not happening anywhere. It was a federal JPTA program that the federal government cut out. Florida Workforce funded that program. They cut it out, and it's only a local program that I believe is the thing that helps. And so I hope that, as we have that discussion, I don't know where it's going to go because I can't represent them, but to give you clarification, as Meredith told you who said what, I'm pretty clear what I said, and I'm pretty clear of where my vote is going to land. And so I'm not going to support the money going into infrastructure, although I believe it. And so let's, full disclosure, I brought that forth with the sheriff, and I told Lindsay that, and I brought it because of a shooting and a killing in Montclair, in which the sheriff said, you know what, I can't protect the kids at Montclair, where they had a lockdown at a school in your district and my district at Montclair Elementary School because they had shootings and killings, and kids couldn't walk home to Aries and Diego because of lights and because of cameras, and the sheriff said he needed help. And so that's how this was first brought, way before Lindsay's time, way before Deborah's time, that was brought before this board, and it was denied to the sheriff. And we found CRA funding to help the sheriff with that. I hope that, we can have a cordial dialogue, that doesn't end up in what we deal with bureaucrats, that it doesn't end up in litigation that we got to sit before Judge Williams arguing over 2 or 3 years. And so that's why I offered the compromise, hopefully to pull my colleagues in to say, you know what, we're going to help kids from all 5 districts, and we'll figure out another way to get lights in sidewalks, which I tell you was probably not popular. And so I don't know where that goes. I don't know what, maybe it's 1 year, and Lindsay and I talked. This board has decided that they're not going to give 2 years. I think that if this board takes a hard stance that they're not going to do anything, it's going to force the county commissioners to take a hard stance. And then, quite frankly, when we say we want to help children, we're going to end up with more litigation of money that's going to have to be paid that can really help children. And so, as Stephanie said, I'm trying to have the happy medium that will get my colleagues a consensus and will make this board happy. So I hope that answers what you said, school board member.
Yes. I was just concerned with the, that we've already voted on the past years, and there's an agreement with the 24-25 tax year of the 495,000. That was one of the options. And
It is,
Yeah.
and what I would say is I think it was a lengthy discussion that happened. I think Commissioner Berry said it very well. We are coming with a collaborative spirit, but there's not all the trust in the world between us yet. We can get there, and maybe we need to take baby steps with this. I work great with Clara. Deborah and I had a wonderful meeting with her, and I think she's definitely the right person to lead the charge on this expansion. But maybe we do this 1 year at a time and see what it looks like. $500,000 essentially going into this and working collaboratively. If the county will give us the exemption, and let's prove what we can do together. And like Commissioner Berry said, if it's terrible and doesn't work, then they'll do something different. But I think that it's a step in the right direction, and I think you really commended us for not only for the program for Commissioner May having that, but for us coming with an idea of partnership that will serve both of our missions. So,
And Lindsay, and Commissioner Berry is a dear friend of mine, on and off the dais. And we probably, usually we share the same ideologies, but I don't want this to be a every year discussion. I'm interested in a multi-year helping children. And, to me, that's what I'm going to recommend on Thursday, and I hope that this board will get it. I mean, because we want to help children and make sure that we're doing, great work. And quite frankly, and I've said this, and I'm going to, end this, I've said in private meeting, it's so politicized because we're not having this discussion at city council meetings, we're having it at county commissioners. We should be in tandem together. And so if we're funding the city for after-school programs and we're doing great work, no program is good. We know what happens to inner city, urban city kids. Deborah's taught at the high school. They're sweet and they're great. And the superintendent and you would say this. In elementary school, they're not a problem. Middle school, they're beginning to get a problem. In high school, we lose them. And when they drop out of high school and they have no hope and no job, they become delinquents. And so if there's an opportunity that we can get children there, I mean, to sell that program, I'm very passionate. We have 37 young people who make over $40,000 a year who work, whether it's in one of the constitutionals at the county, whether it's in the private sector, because we gave them opportunity, and without summer employment, they wouldn't have an opportunity. So if people are serious about helping children, to me, it's a no-brainer that we're not going to reserve and keep the money. We have the money in reserve. If it's an opportunity to help children and we're serious about helping the most at-risk children, I mean the children who are committing suicide, the kids who are getting people pregnant, the kids who are being incarcerated, it is, quite frankly, Coach, we can just say it, it's African-American children between the ages of 15 to 18. They are at the highest risk of anything, and if we could find that funding to make sure that we give them not only summer employment, but year-round employment, that will be a training ground for them to get a job. And we place kids at the school district in the book depository. We place children in the warehouses at the school district. We have kids throughout the summer that's cleaning lockers and changing locker numbers at the school district. We put kids at the city. We put kids in community centers. It makes a difference. And so I hope that we're not going to limit ourselves to say we're going to reserve 2 years and only give 1 year. I probably would not be supportive of that.
Mr. Chair, Mr. May, you may not believe this. One of my first jobs was at the old Pickens School, the textbook depository. Absolutely. And I believe it was 2 years ago, we were at Navy Federal, and the program that Ms. Ray had at Pine Forest High School through a partnership with Navy Federal and the apprenticeship programs, that a number of students from that high school had the opportunity to participate in. DCT is still available at all of our high schools, but when you give a young man or a young lady the opportunity to learn, to have their own job, take on responsibility, be accountable for that responsibility, and make a little bit of money, it goes a long ways. Unfortunately, I cannot be in attendance on Thursday because we have a school board meeting, but I can give a letter, full support of doing what we need to be able to do to provide occupations for kids. You never know where that first job may end up when you're 61 years old. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it also shows collaboration and teamwork, which is what our whole county needs, our city, our school district, everybody working together to do what's best for the children of Escambia County. So I trust you to express my opinion, sir.
Yes, sir. And Coach, I will tell you, JPTA, summer youth, I mean, you'll hear Quint Studer talk about JPTA. And my parents did well, but I worked for Frank Colburn, who you know from the North End, and I worked for Gilda Marbury, who Coach knows, and they made a difference. And so I'm going to support all of the dollars going to a jobs training program. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other discussion, comment, questions? Would voice the same comments to you, Lemon. Thank you for your mediating in there and advocating for something that will present. It sounds like this is going to be close to the win-win-win all the way around, with the biggest winners, it sounds like, being the kids, and I think that's what we're all
We
striving
give,
for.
the trust gives, the county gives, and the children win.
Okay.
I do want to bring up that we have different funding methodologies, though. So like, we do need to talk about this. So although you're talking about multi-year, are you talking like splitting the 495 over 3 years?
I
Are
don't know
you
how to
talking-
work the details. I just get it in concept.
Okay, well,
yeah.
like, but I would say that for this particular purpose, we're talking the 495 from the CRA dollars to launch this, which is not supplanting, it's something new, it'll bring on new kids, and then that would lead into more of like a sole source multi-year. But we could utilize the CRA dollars to get this going and get some data around it. That would support it for multi-year, where we're not dealing with the CRA part of this, we're actually looking at it from a sole source.
So I'm,
three-year type of
Lindsay, so
opportunity.
clearly, and I don't think we can work out the details. I'm happy to meet with you, later. Not any of the outside, but the CRA dollars, I would expect, those dollars to be able to go into this jobs program.
Okay,
Yeah, that's, to be
Okay.
clear.
all right.
All of the CRA dollars.
That's fine.
I'm not asking for any other funding.
I know.
I mean, for my support. I mean, it may be something different.
Sure.
I mean, because I have colleagues who would love to have it for sidewalks and lights, which I believe in. But what I'm saying is that all those dollars are for the most at-risk students, and we could utilize those dollars. And it may not be exactly what everybody wants, but to me, it's a happy medium.
Yes, I would agree with you. Okay, all right.
Further comments, discussion? If
No, I just want to say this is great. I just flipped through it, and thank you, Michael. This is amazing.
I was going to.
Yeah, and I had a
echo
question. What do y'all disperse these at? I mean, where can parents pick them up at? I mean, how they put out in the public?
So we have a distribution list, and we have thousands of copies delivered to the school district warehouse. We have them delivered to Studer Institute for the brain bags. We have them delivered to Baptist Hospital and Sacred Hospital. We have them delivered to Lakeview Mental Health Institute. Where the CHS Navigators, they're delivered to the CHS Navigators. We have thousands of copies at our office, so if anyone needs a copy, they can contact myself or Alma, and we'll be able to give them
Yeah,
copies as
I
well.
was hoping I could get some.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to say, Michael, this sounds like something that we're going into the fifth printing here and also, which is great. That's what we want.
I did want to, just real quickly, I told Lindsay when I saw the updated booklet how valuable it is to have those. We have those in the courthouse where I work, in the juvenile courthouse, where we have dependency court and delinquency court. I do want to echo on how valuable it is to have that. When I've talked to the families, every family that comes in my courthouse has access to one of those. A lot of them take them. I hope they use them. But I know that they're in a good user-friendly format. I'm able to tell them all that. So that's one of the things that I'm very proud of the trust when I see those publications every day in the building. I did want to pass that along to you.
I would agree, Judge. I think this is one of the things that is directly along those lines, that rather than just being an entity that writes checks to people, because that certainly is a finite amount, as much as it is, it's still finite. And that this type of effort and education resource guide goes out to providers, to families, to entities themselves that look in here and go, I had no idea there was this entity with these interests in providing these services. This really is a tremendous offering here and a tremendous resource that you're putting together and getting out to the community. So kudos to you and the staff for doing that. Any further discussion? If not, we will stand adjourned at 6:44. Thank you all.